MTN Sports. This is Bobcat Insider, sponsored by First Interstate Bank.
Welcome into the Bobcat Insider. Grace Lawrence here with Keaton Logie. Keaton, we've made it to these dog days of February. Both teams headed to Dahlberg on Saturday, and they walked out with two pretty tough losses. But let's start with the women. The Grizz got off to a hot start just like the first time around. They didn't take that foot off the gas, and it was a game where they kind of had to do that.
They really did, and I'm not too surprised that Montana was really playing desperate in this game. You know, Brian Holsinger in his third year there really hasn't had any success against Montana State, and if they had lost this game, there would have been some really disappointed faces over there. And look, you know, like we said, they were playing desperate. They hit some very contested shots, and for Montana State, we know what the offensive limitations are for this team, and you have to play elite defense if this Bobcat team's going to win, which they have won a lot of games already.
Exactly. I mean, they did force a lot of turnovers in that first half, but there weren't many fouls being called on both sides of the ball, both with the Grizz, both with the Cats, and it's tough when you kind of rely on that drive down low with Mara, Taylor, Maddie drives a lot to the rim. They weren't getting those calls. Those shots weren't falling. It was overall tough. Something, though, that was pretty much a highlight was the young core. You know, they did pretty good for their first time on the road in a rivalry series.
Yeah, I thought they stood up tall, and we'll hear from Coach Binford on that, on how she thought they handled that. But that's a really good sign for things as we continue to move forward. And, you know, speaking of not getting a lot of foul calls is, you know, this Bobcat team really struggles to shoot the three-point ball. They just don't hit a lot of threes. And so when you're counting by twos, you got to find other ways to score, and that is getting those and ones, which they didn't really have an opportunity on Saturday, and making sure that when you do get some transition opportunities, you have to convert. There were a few too many turnovers in that regard too.
Exactly. Something that's really key for them too is that post depth when they don't have a lot of shooters on the outside. It's all about getting that ball down low, capitalizing on the mid-range, and we saw Ella go down pretty hard, not play in that second half, and you know, we don't really know the status, but it's going to be hard if they go into this series with 9 players like they did the first time.
Right, and Coach Binford's not going to give us an update on that, so we'll see, but it's going to come down to maybe you move a Madison Hall, maybe you move a Caitlin Lamardo down to that 4 spot. That's going to be tough. We'll see, and you know, it's going to be a tough situation if she's out for any extended time.
Exactly. Now over to the men, a tough loss for them as well. You know, they came out pretty strong. It was a very fast-paced game, but then there was that little run at the end of the first half that kind of felt like a killer.
Yeah, that's really where it was. And look, let's be real. The Bobcats kind of took it on the chin in this game on the men's side. And, you know, you look at all the things that were coming up and the storylines going into this year. We knew rebounding could be an issue. We knew depth was going to be an issue. We knew experience was going to be an issue. And that has been covered up by some great coaching and great heart and hustle to this point. But some of that is starting to show itself now. And even though this has led to a 4-game losing streak, there's still so much on the line with this team sitting at 6 and 7 and an opportunity to stay out of that first day, especially hosting Portland State, who is out of that first day as well, but they're kind of right next to each other in the standings.
Yeah, I think what's big in February is veteran leadership and proven depth. And as you know, that Logie came in and he was one of the last Division I coaches hired, so it was very hard for him to get that depth right off the bat. The other side of it is that, you know, Boise's in front of them. They still can end the season strong.
No doubt. And if they stay in those top 6 seeds, then they're going to have an opportunity where you got to win 3 games in 3 days, and you get an opportunity for some postseason play in the NCAA tournament. So a lot on the line, and the men are back home this weekend while the women head on the road to Portland State and Sac State. We'll talk with head coach Tricia Binford in a bit, but first, when we come back, head men's coach Matt Logie joined us on the Bobcat Insider.
Take coverage of the Cats with you. Download our app for your favorite mobile device today. Welcome back to Bobcat Insider, sponsored by First Interstate Bank.
We're back on the Bobcat Insider. I'm Keaton Logie, along with head men's coach Matt Logie. Coach, how we doing? How we feeling?
Doing well. All
right. Well, getting back into the brick this week, which is nice after 3 games on the road. But let's dive into this game from this last week in Montana. Start to the game was solid, but it felt like kind of that end of the first half, they had a little bit of a flurry, and that was the thing that kind of flipped things.
Yeah, I thought we had a great week of prep. I thought, coming into the game, we were really trying to improve on just our organization and being on the same page and following the blueprint on both sides of the ball, really. And I thought for big parts of the first half, we did that well. But, you know, we allowed that little run at the end of the first half, and then when the second half began and got down again, it kind of created some separation.
The other big factor in that game was the rebounding. They really crashed the offensive glass in that contest. Was that something you saw they were doing specifically in X's and O's, or was it just a positioning situation?
Yeah, I think that was the thing that stood out when you watch the film. While the scout, the game plan, all those things were improved, you got to go get the ball when you force them to miss. And Oki did a really good job on the offensive glass in the first half. We lost some blockouts that we needed to win, and that allowed them second chance and scramble opportunities.
One of the bright spots in this game, though, was Eddie Turner. He was able to really pour it in this contest. What did you see from Eddie this week?
Yeah, I liked Eddie's aggressiveness. He did a good job of touching the paint, and as the defense spread out, put pressure on the rim, did a nice job finishing around the basket. And we need him and Rob to be guys that touch the paint on a consistent basis, and not just for themselves, but to create shots for other people as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Rob in this game, and you look at where this team is now. There was about a 6-player rotation in this game against Montana, and we've seen you run the horses a lot as we get to this point. How is Rob doing? It looked like he was kind of favoring his rib cage a little bit. I mean, it looked like he was just leaving it all out on the floor in this game.
Yeah, Rob's he's left it all out there all year, and while no one's perfectly healthy this time of year, Rob hits the new one in the country, and so he definitely was feeling it on Saturday. Had kind of the rib thing going on, during the game, in addition to the other stuff he's dealing with. But you can't credit his heart enough, his passion, his commitment and loyalty to this team and to this program has just been exceptional. And our guys follow his lead, and there was no way he wasn't going to fight to the brink on that.
Yeah, win, lose, or draw. We've definitely seen a lot of heart from this team over the course of the year. But as we get into the final 2 weeks with 5 games plus another road trip coming up on the other side of this week, how are you going to manage the fatigue and just the natural attrition you're going to have when you are running such a short rotation right now?
Well, we need guys to step up. We don't have to necessarily be married to that. There's going to be opportunities in a long season where there is a next man up mentality. We've seen that from guys like Sam Leck a lot, and Jaden Garan and Chika Nduka at different times in this year, and we need that. We need that production, and as you head into the postseason, it's really just about not letting go of the rope. We've been fighting all year. I think our guys, to their credit, have really bounced back, and we're going through some adversity right now. But our goal all along has been to learn all the lessons we can and be as good as we possibly can be in Boise. And so that opportunity is still in front of us. That's where our focus needs to be, and we got to hold on to that rope and keep tugging.
Right. Well, you had a great opportunity this weekend. The Bobcats, even with this loss against Montana, are sitting at 6-7 in the Big Sky. So still a great opportunity. Still sitting in a position to avoid that play-in day and stay out of those bottom 4. But what are going to be some of the keys to get a little revenge against the Vikings this week?
Yeah, Portland State's an interesting team. They are very athletic. They've got really, a couple guys that have really high talent levels and can really get going and get off a little bit. And they're very, very good at home, and so we've faced that already. We've seen what that looked like. But certainly they're a team that is really dangerous and has been playing some good basketball as of late.
Yeah, I know the guys are tired, but getting back in front of that home crowd is going to be certainly a shot of adrenaline for the guys. And for you personally, as we navigate this season, not having a lot of experience, not having a lot of depth, that wasn't really a surprise considering when you came in and just all the transfers out and just the circumstance of things. But you're a guy who has had a lot of success in his coaching career to this point. So are there any things you're relying on mentally now or in your coaching philosophy on how to navigate what has been a bit of a down period here so that we can finish this year on a high note?
Yeah, I think even in the midst of lots of the successes that we've enjoyed in our basketball family, there's always been valleys, there's always been adversity, and with strong leadership comes a really consistent voice and consistent support of our athletes and a consistent process and message, and so that doesn't change. We've always been very process oriented. I think that, coupled with the culture and the characteristics of the team and staffs that we put together like we have here, have allowed us to persevere during those times and come out on the other side. And so, while we might not get to determine the timeline on what that looks like always, delayed doesn't mean denied. And we know what winning basketball looks like, and we're going to keep pushing the envelope until we get there.
No doubt. No, although it's a 6-7 Big Sky record right now, great opportunity to get to 500 or better as we go to Portland or host Portland State, Sac State, and then out at Idaho after that. So a great opportunity. And even though, again, like you said, it's been down a little bit here the last couple of games, great opportunity to accomplish a lot. Overall, though, at its core, why is this team prepared and ready to handle this in a resilient fashion and get out there and finish this thing strong over the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at the process we went through. You mentioned, last spring and what that looked like. On May 1st last year, we had 4 players, under scholarship, and so, we set out to get guys that have high character thresholds that have the ability to fight through times like this, and I think we've got that group. Rome wasn't built in a day, and we've got to just keep stacking days and keep tied to that blueprint.
Yeah, there's no shortcuts to experience. You got a great opportunity for some more experience this week at home at the Brick.
Yep.
All right, Portland State and Sac State are coming through Bozeman, and we expect a lot of people out there to bring this tired group a big wave of energy as they finish this thing strong and stay in those top 6 seeds. Coach, appreciate the time and the insight today.
Thanks a lot. Go Cats.
All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, Grace Lawrence is sitting down with head women's coach Tricia Binford on the Bobcat Insider.
There's more coverage of the Bobcats online anytime at montanasports.com. Welcome back to Bobcat Insider, sponsored by First Interstate Bank.
Welcome back into the Bobcat Insider. Grace Lawrence here with head coach Tricia Binford. We're into the middle of February, end of February. How you feeling?
Well, we're getting to the end here. Got to finish strong.
Definitely. We're coming off a 1-game week, a pretty tough loss to the Grizz in Dahlberg on Saturday. What did you take away from that game?
I think you have to turn the page as much as possible, get yourself regrouped, and they played very well, and we played okay, and that was the outcome. When you just play okay this time of year, we got to be sharp on both ends.
Yeah, they got out to a very hot start from the 3-point line, like last time. Didn't really let up, but it seemed like there was hands in the face. How would you assess your team's 3-point defense this past game?
Yeah, there was some misassignments. I would say just the level of pressure wasn't as consistent, but at the same time, they hit some shots, so you don't want to discredit them. They shot the ball really well, and Dahlberg has the atmosphere of that element too. And we had a lot of new kids having that experience. I thought our young kids actually played pretty well. They did some things well given the situation and the environment, and we're going to continue getting better.
Yeah, definitely. Izzy Bunyan seems like she's really coming into her own. How do you assess her game so far this season and this past weekend?
Yeah, I feel like she's getting more composure every game. She's super settled. She doesn't get rattled. She plays in her groove. She's really got the great length on the defensive end, but she's a high-skilled kid on the offensive end, and we look to see her helping us production on the offensive end. Her putting some points on definitely matters.
Yeah, no trips to the free throw line for you guys until that fourth quarter. How tough was that mentally for your girls? Just what are you telling them as a coach to kind of stay dialed in despite not getting those calls?
Well, we have to get that. We're attack-minded. We're very different stylistic. We're not going to be a team shooting 33s a game, so we've got to get to the foul line. We've got to attack, and we got to add those pump fakes and those step throughs and add that element for us. That's a strength for us. That was the difference maker for us. Was the free throws were even, fouls were fairly even, turnovers were even, O-boards, rebounds were even. We slightly lost those. We got to get some of those things in our favor.
Now looking ahead to the final 5 games, this final stretch of February, how are you keeping your team dialed in, leading up to Boise?
With our limited numbers, we've adapted quite heavily. We were trying to go a little bit more non-contact through your week and just making sure you're sharp on both ends. And so you got to pay attention to that dynamic also. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're finding the right things, you're going through the right people. So this is that time of year you want to make some things really fun. But, if you're bored with the process right now, you're not meant for championships. This is where teams start to separate themselves.
Yeah, how are your veterans like Maddie and Taylor helping keep that young core dialed in, looking ahead to the tournament?
There's never a question mark with that group. That group is always dialed in. They're always ready to go and putting everything into it. So we've got great leadership.
Yeah, this road trip coming up with Portland State and Sac State. The last time you guys got them at home, it really felt like, the freshman kind of coming out week. I know Malia Egan had a big game those in that series. How have you seen the freshmen grow since then, especially this past weekend, saying they did step up?
Yeah, I think when you know that your name's called upon and you're going to have to be required to have those minutes, you get a little bit more confidence, and Malia Egan is a testament to that. That was the week that we didn't have KJ in the lineup. So we had to get some more production into the rotation, and she really came in and was attack-minded, getting to the paint, really getting some things on the defensive end. She's really blossoming. She's really getting groomed there. But we talked about Izzy Bunyan. Ella Johnson was huge. Obviously, Brooke Berry is somebody that can come in and rebound heavily for us. So we're going to need everyone. We've talked about that since we started having all these injuries at the beginning of the year. It takes everyone for us to play to our strengths, to play to our potential.
Yeah, last week when we talked to Natalie leading into Cat Grizz, she talked about how big it was to get KJ back. Not having her for this series previously must have been hard. You still got 2 wins, though. So what's the mindset like going in with Caitlin to this week, having one of your shooters?
Yeah. Well, it's definitely not overlooking. When you're on the road, everything's harder, right? So teams play extremely well in their home court. Portland State's extremely hungry. They got one of the best scoring guards in the league, and then you have Sac State that just upset number 1 in our conference. So you got 2 opponents that are hungry and playing their best basketball right now. So there's no overlooking these opponents. I think that for us, it's about getting possessions back in our favor.
Yeah, you mentioned the guard Morales for Portland State having 19 when she came into the brick. What's going to be key in limiting that this time around? I just think she needs to hand in her face. She's going to find some. She's too good to not have that, but she just needs to be a team assignment, knowing where she is and making sure those are difficult shots, contested shots, not her rhythm shots. She's very good off the dribble. She's going to find some teammates, and we just got to finish plays. I think the rebounds are going to be huge in that game. Yeah, you mentioned Sac State had the upset over NAU last week, a very high-scoring game for them. Does this conference feel like anybody can beat anybody on any given day?
It sure does. Yeah, absolutely. When you look, from 1 to 10, whatever we are, I'm like, it's very, very tight in a lot of these scores, and you've got to be ready to roll. And at the same time, we're looking at 5 games, so you want to make sure you're building some momentum here going into tournament play as well.
Yeah, and then another road trip, a back-to-back road week. How are you keeping your team mentally dialed in when it comes to that tough grind of the season as we enter into this final stretch?
Yeah, I think just one game at a time. We're in our rhythm of what the week looks like for a 2-game week. What we do on the Mondays are the fundamental film review, and then Tuesday's kind of that prep day, getting ready for Wednesday and travel. So those things are very similar. You don't want to have things totally different at this time of year either. But at the same time, you want to make sure that you've made your adjustments the second time around. So those things we want to keep pretty normal as they also become great student athletes, right? So they still have to be great students.
Looking back at the first time you played Sac State, Mara's first career double-double, she out-rebounded her scoring, so 12 points, 14 rebounds. What are you looking for her as we enter this final stretch of the season?
I just think for Mara, she just continues to get better. The things that we're asking of her is to play to her potential, and I think you're seeing that. She's impacting in every category, and we certainly need that from her.
Awesome. All righty. Well, best of luck this week.
Thank you
back on the road, and coming up, Keaton and I will preview both of those games.
Get social with Bobcat fans and follow MTN Sports on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Welcome back to Bobcat Insider, sponsored by First Interstate Bank.
Welcome back into the Bobcat Insider. Grace Lawrence here with Keaton Galogly. Keaton, after talking with Coach Binford, it feels like any team can beat any other team on any given day in this conference, as you saw with Sac State and NAU last week. A big opportunity in front of them to bounce back after that 2-game losing streak.
Right, last time Montana State hosted Sac State was still looking for their first Big Sky win. They've started to figure things out now, and as you just mentioned, they did take down the top team in the conference in NAU. So massive opportunity for the women, who are sitting right now at 8-5, and a chance to still stay in that 3 or 4 seed range going into Boise. Exactly, and what's big for them was they found their feet on the road. I know it was very tough in Dahlberg, but that's kind of a rivalry game. It kind of lives on their own, and for the men, they've got to have resilience, and we're going to see what's in store this week. Right, and so many of their goals are still laid out in front of them as they go into the final 2 weeks of the regular season. And yes, they're sitting at 6-7, but what do we say at the beginning of the year? What do they have to do? They've got to play hard, and they're going to have a chance to get to 500 in the Big Sky. Bobcats have had 5 straight seasons of 500 or better in the Big Sky. So right now they've got 3 winnable games. Portland State on Thursday, Sac State on Saturday, and then you go to Idaho. If you can get those 3 wins, you're guaranteed at least a 500 year. Exactly, and then they have Eastern, a team they've already beaten. What's nice about the conference this year is there's so much parity, like I was saying as we opened this segment, so it's going to be really fun. All hands on deck till Boise. No doubt. As long as they can stay in those top 6 seeds, they're going to have a great opportunity to make some noise come March. All right, we'll see you at the Brick this weekend. We'll talk to you next week on the Bobcat Insider.